Which?
NBA on ESPN on Wednesday night. The Bucks travel to Houston to take on the Rockets. That's at 8 o'clock on ESPN. And then after that, the Detroit Pistons, Jalen Rose's team, go into Los Angeles to face the Lakers without LeBron. That's at 10:30. And of course, on ESPN Plus at all times, you can catch the LeBron James documentary series about him and his childhood friends and their ascension to global dominance, more than an athlete. Tuesday and every morning, get up with the Get Up crew at 8 a.m. They will be spending a lot of time breaking down the newly crowned champions of college football. That's every day at 8 a.m. on Get Up. Welcome back to Jalen and Jacoby. Jalen Rose, there was a lot of action in the NBA over the weekend, but not all of it happened on the court. The Minnesota Timberwolves, who are now fighting for a playoff spot, about 2 games out of a playoff spot in the West, beat the Los Angeles Lakers. It's good news. They beat them pretty handily. Wasn't even close. Seems like good things are happening for the Timberwolves until we get this report that Tom Thibodeau has been relieved of his duties as not just the head coach, but also as the president of basketball operations for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Jalen Rose, what do you think about the timing of this firing of Tom Thibodeau?
The timing is interesting. I can't say I'm surprised. I think this season started to unravel before it ever got going with the whole Jimmy Butler saga. And Tibbs, who's a really good NBA coach, and I think he deserves another opportunity somewhere in the league, didn't necessarily get everybody initially to play to their maximum ability, except Derrick Rose, who had a resurgence this season. So he is a player in particular I'm going to watch and monitor his productivity moving forward, because he was really effective with Tibbs as his head coach. But overall, once they paid Wiggins a maximum contract, they needed him to perform. They need him to perform as such. And while Towns has had his moments of inconsistency, he has been playing really well, scoring, getting boards, getting blocks. Like, he's playing with a level of enthusiasm. They had a great win against the Lakers, as you noted. And so, like, for Tibbs to be relieved, I can't say I'm surprised that it happened, but it normally doesn't happen after you got a big-time win.
Well, there was a follow-up tweet about this from Woj, and Woj went on and he tweeted about maybe some potential replacements for the job that is now open. Woj tweeted, quote, Minnesota GM Scott Layden will remain in place for now, but his future is uncertain. Fred Hoiberg and ESPN analyst Chauncey Billups have been discussed internally as possible candidates for GM or head coach per sources. Hoiberg appears focused on a return to NBA coaching. Interesting. There are some people that are kind of making a link between Hoiberg's potential interest in the UCLA job and the timing of the firing. It seems like Hoiberg has been earmarked as someone that the Minnesota wants to come in. But I ask you this. Does this mean that your NBA countdown brother and my pickup basketball playmate, Chauncey Billups, will be leaving us and going to Minnesota?
It will be well-deserved, and I'm happy that he continues to be mentioned when these opportunities come up. I think if he was to get an opportunity like that, he'd do a terrific job. But I think this is going to be Fred Hoiberg's gig. He worked previously for a really long time within the organization before he went to Iowa State, and there's always been an affinity for him with that franchise. And so I would not be surprised. And the timing you just acknowledged with the UCLA job coming open, and we know the kind of coach that he was in college, he actually, in my opinion, didn't get a true and fair overall shot to actually be a head coach in Chicago, because they turned over the roster and the expectations of the team changed. It seemed like each season. So, like, I would not be surprised if it's Fred, and he has some young talent to work with in Minnesota.
Well, that all happened in Los Angeles and Minnesota, and something very interesting happened in the Bay over the weekend. No, it was not just interesting that the Warriors won a home game, their first in a while, but they hosted the Kings, and they combined to make 41 three-point shots in one game, which broke a record for highest total of three-point shots made between two teams. The Kings had 20. The Warriors had 21. Very quickly, Jalen, what does this tell you about just how the three-point shot is changing the game?
Well, now you have 5 guys in most lineups just surrounding the line, drive and kick, for a three, or the guys have improved their level of being able to shoot off the dribble with accuracy and with range. These players have mastered that shot. And so you have to extend your defense, and when you don't do so and you get these guys clean looks, a Sacramento Kings team that has outplayed expectations so far, has a lot of good young talent, and we know the Warriors can get going with the best of them. They lit it up, and they took the NBA record.
Well, it might have been 42 made threes, except for this interesting play and this call from the referees. Now, I'm dying to know what you think about this. Watch Steph with the ball, step back three, hits, didn't hit it, but still, got called for a whistle on a travel there. Holds up the 1-3 on his jersey. We've seen players get away with this, and this get not called often, especially regarding James Harden. What do you think about this call and Steph holding up the 1-3 on his jersey?
So first and foremost, let me get to the root of this issue. We're going to see the NBA flat out start calling this a travel because it is. I don't know if it's going to be a public mandate so that the media and fans and players can kind of look forward to it. I anticipate that may take place, but you're in a game where you're not allowed to literally have any physical contact with a ball handler. You also can't allow them to take 4 or 5 steps on a step back jump shot. So I think that's something that's going to be called consistently.
I think it will be as well. And of course, Steph had something to say about it after the game.
Throwing a 13 on your jersey after you got called for that travel?
I've seen that once or twice. I tried it myself, and obviously they got confused. Thought it was, they knew it was somebody different, so they called it. But it is what it is.
I mean, am I doing the media thing and looking too much into this? Is this Steph going at Harden, Steph going at the referees, Steph trying to get the referees to call this more on Harden? What's he doing here?
This is really actually Steph acknowledging that he feels like he don't get the respect on his name that he deserves from the officials. And he's just using that call as a way to articulate it. But overall, I don't care if it's Harden doing it or Steph doing it. It's a flat-out travel, that play.
Well, Steph is one of the greatest shooters that I've ever seen with my eyeballs. And there's also this shooting performance that I wanted to show you. Your adoptive father, LeVar Ball, was just shooting around. He's a little short on the first shot there.
Gets it back, Pops.
Gets it back, and then we just front rim again, but the ball's going back to him. Okay, that's 2. He's just getting warmed up.
Big
and then
baller brand stock is up, baby.
That was an air ball, so now we're short on 3 in a row. Maybe he should take a step in. Might be a little outside of his range. Might be a little outside of his range there. And then we got the 4th one. Oh, no, that one's short too. And then now the crowd's gathering. You got to hit this one.
Everybody gathering around and
go.
gonna knock it down.
And he hit it. Jalen, this to me is just someone who doesn't understand their range. You know, like if you're going to be short on the first 4, just take a step in, LeVar. Just take a step in, LeVar. Come on, you don't have to shoot from that far out. Just take a step in.
How you going to say he don't understand his range when he actually ended up making the shot? And how about the fact that somebody's parent could be on the floor shooting threes and everybody standing around with camera phones trying to capture it? What a great scene. I'm so enthusiastic to be a part of the family.
I think it's just, remember this is a man that said he could beat Michael Jordan one-on-one. You know what I mean? I think his game is more around the basket. maybe he's not a long
Have you seen MJ
shooter.
make a shot lately? When we talked about MJ on this show recently, what were the topics?
He was dancing. He was dancing at a holiday party, and he was carrying tequila. Those are the 2 things that we've spoken about recently. 2 things that I support, by the way: tequila and holiday parties. Why not? Coming up next, Zion Williamson has a 360 dunk in a game under his belt, and Jimmy Butler is doing what Jimmy Butler does. We'll break it all down right after this. Coming to you live from the Seaport District on Pier 17 and brought to you by Heineken. Welcome back to Jalen and Jacoby. Jalen Rose, Zion had another moment. Oh, did Zion have a moment this weekend? If you have a smartphone, you have seen this play. Clemson brings it up. Zion finds himself alone, and that's a legit 360. Because you notice where his feet started and where his feet finished. That is a 360-degree dunk in a competitive basketball game. Jalen, he called this dunk a 7 or an 8 out of 10. What is a 10 then? Like, what is a 10?
Zion has a unique ability with his build to be so very explosive, because normally guys that are 270 don't do 360 dunks during collegiate basketball games.
No, they don't.
Like, I remember when C. Webb got a steal, I think, at Ohio State and did one in the game. That reminds me of the level of athlete that Zion is. We've seen in collegiate basketball bulky power forwards. One of my favorite teams on UNLV, obviously I loved LJ and rocked the gold tooth just like him and all of that stuff. Rodney Rogers, I played with him in Denver for a couple of years. But for this guy to be 270 pounds and have that agility, it's just amazing the type of athlete and potential that this guy has if he continues to grow as a basketball player, which I believe he is.
I have an important question about Zion. It's something I've been thinking about for a long time that I want to put on wax, Jalen Rose. Is Zion a stretch mark 4? Is he?
Well, in theory, he could be considered a part of the category, but he has no stretch marks. So it don't apply to him.
He's too young. He's just too young. Now, this is interesting right here. Zion shot 82% from the field in this game. And this is the third game this season that he has shot 80% or higher in a game. What does that indicate to you about his game?
They can't stop him from getting layups and dunks, whether it's in the half court, but obviously in transition. Duke's amongst the league, amongst the best in the country at stealing the ball, as you just saw on the previous clip. So teams, as conference play continues to go around and you play them for the second time, and once the NCAA tournament comes, you're going to need for him and RJ Barrett to be more efficient, obviously for Cam Reddish to make shots, and Jones does a terrific job playing on-ball D. But if teams are taking that away, which some squads will eventually be able to do, this is why I anticipate that while this is going to be an amazing season for the Blue Devils, I truly believe it won't end in one where they cut down the nets and win a national championship.
Well, look forward to seeing that. Jalen, I was shocked by a Woj tweet over the weekend. It was Friday, everyone's off work, and just relaxing, and then all of a sudden, there's a little Woj bomb. Reporting with Ramona Shelburne, Philadelphia's Jimmy Butler has aggressively challenged Coach Brett Brown on All-Star's role in 76ers offense, complicating an already tenuous chemistry among the team's Big Three hierarchy. Story on ESPN. There's a lot to talk about here. There's a lot to talk about. But here was my thing. I thought that Jimmy Butler would just zip his lips this year because he's on a contract year. I thought that he would just play nice. He would be complimentary. He would love Philadelphia, and he would love Coach Brown. And then he would wait to really tell people how he feels until after the season, and he signs a max deal. That's not what he's doing now. He's aggressively challenging the coach. And if you read into what Woj says there, he says it sort of messes with the hierarchy of the Big Three. We've heard Joel Embiid complain about his role on offense. Jimmy Butler's complaining about his role on offense. What does all this tell you about what's really happening in the Philadelphia locker room?
Well, first and foremost, I think Brett Brown is a terrific coach and has done a unique job with a squad that was initially tanking to now one that has 3 All-Stars, legitimately. And so you talked about now playing to each one's strength while masking their weaknesses. And when the game is close in the fourth quarter, it can be a little complicated based on who you want to feature or who you want to have in the action, because Joel Embiid is uber talented. So whether he's on the post, whether he's at the free throw line area, whether he's at the 3, he can clearly make a play for himself or a teammate at all times.
Of course.
But you can't just exhaust that. It is a team game, and you don't want them to get fatigued. Ben Simmons isn't a shooter at all. But however, you can't stop that guy from getting to the bucket at 6'10", great athlete, great passer, has ways to get to the hole and finish regardless of the fact that he's not making perimeter shots. And then Jimmy Butler, who plays an intermediate game. Yeah, he can shoot the 3, but it ain't his game to be launching 10 a game. And so you want this guy in pick and rolls. You want him playing downhill. You want to get him the ball on the wing while he still has a live dribble and the ability to make a play. So these are like first world problems for the Philadelphia 76ers. But I want to point out two things that are really important in this dynamic. One, they're truly going to be judged by what happens in the playoffs.
Yep.
And like I said, the thing in the Eastern Conference I'm looking forward to seeing is who's watching it. Because Toronto's played well. Boston is my pick to also make it there. But when you look at the standings, Indiana's in the mix. The Bucks are in the mix. And obviously the Sixers are in the mix. So if they go first round or second round and get eliminated, that won't be playing up to expectation, which leads to the second thing that I want to say. And that's when he's already talking like this, you have to have some level of fear that he may not re-sign. And so I appreciate how the Raptors, Masai Ujiri and Elton Brand acquired Kawhi Leonard and Jimmy Butler. Those guys have done a terrific job with those teams, and I would have made those deals because I think both of those squads needed that jolt. However, once you trade Saric and you trade Covington, and he's already aggressively complaining about his role, if he leaves at the end of the season and you don't get anything in return, and you have a botched number one pick, who I'm rooting for to do well, Markelle Fultz, now all of a sudden they've set their franchise backwards based on the competition. That's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
Absolutely, and it's a two-way street. Maybe the Sixers, after all of this, might not extend that max deal to Butler for him to turn down. You never know. You talk about the hierarchy in the Eastern Conference, and you think that the Celtics will come out of the Eastern Conference. I'm pretty sure at this point that the Raptors are going to come out of the Eastern Conference. They played two of the best teams in the Eastern Conference in a back-to-back over the weekend. On Saturday, they go into Milwaukee and beat Milwaukee. And then Kawhi Leonard rests on Sunday in a game that I was watching during the football game, and they beat the Pacers. They was kind of close in the first half, and the Toronto in the third quarter just kind of skipped away. Kyle Lowry has now returned. Impressive back-to-back wins for the Raptors. Do you think that they are the class of the Eastern Conference?
I do think so. And Nick Nurse, their first-year head coach, is doing a terrific job. And you've heard me say this on and off wax. We've seen Kyle Lowry be an all-star multiple times, can make the three amongst the league leaders in assists. That's an improvement in his game. We know Kawhi's amongst the best players in the game. And he seems to now have his rhythm back, which is scarily efficient. And Serge Ibaka is a seasoned veteran. But I want to go deeper into the box score. Pascal Siakam, his improvement, not only handling the ball, in particular in pick and roll situations, but his confidence that he can make an open shot has really unlocked this roster, along with Fred VanVleet, because you can play him alongside Lowry. You can play him when Lowry's not in the game. He showed that he can have double-digit assists. He's been a closer for them the last couple of seasons, and he can make a shot. And so, like, those two guys' level of improvement help make up the fiber of a Raptors team that I agree with you are currently the class in the East.
I am almost positive that Pascal Siakam, if this continues and he stays healthy, is going to win the most improved player, and he is one of the most deserving most improved players that I've seen in quite some time. An award that Jalen Rose won once upon a time. Coming up next on Jalen Jacoby, the college football championship is upon us. Alabama and Clemson are just hours away from facing off, and we'll get you ready for it right after this. Michael Carter-Williams has had a, let's call an up and down NBA career.
Well, he got traded from Philly by mentioning the word win in the locker room one time.
Yeah, they were like the Win Hotel? Like, when does the bus leave? Like, what do you mean? You don't win around here.
Yes.
Jalen Jacoby, Jalen Rose, Monday night at 8 o'clock on all of the ESPN networks. You can watch the college football championship this evening between the Alabama and Clemson. Jalen, here's the thing. These teams have faced off in the college football playoff the last 4 years. Clemson and Deshaun Watson won the championship a couple years ago. Every other game, Clemson has lost, so they're now 1-3 against Alabama. They've been very dominant against all other teams except Alabama. How much does Clemson need to win this game to keep the illusion that Alabama is not this dominant dynasty, to keep the quote-unquote rivalry alive? Like, how important is it for sort of college football fans and college football business and college football as a whole that Clemson wins this game to make it feel like there's a team on even par with Alabama?
Well, that's what a rivalry actually is. Not two teams making it to the championship game or playing in the playoff, but one team actually winning and then the other team able to follow suit like Clemson has been able to do when they won with Deshaun Watson. Look no further than two chess moves that these two teams made over the past 4 seasons. Number one, Nick Saban subbed his quarterback at halftime of the national championship game. He takes Jalen out and he puts in Tua. And what does the guy do? Throw a game-winning touchdown. Okay? So now you're Clemson. How do you one-up Alabama? Out goes Kelly Bryant. In comes Trevor Lawrence. The most important position on the field, the quarterback. And we've seen now why they made that move. Let's see tonight if it's going to actually pay off for Clemson.
We will see. However, I strongly believe that Alabama will win this game. I would be shocked if Clemson wins. I mean, I've been shocked before, but Alabama certainly looks good. And Nick Saban would, if he wins tonight, gets his seventh championship, which would break a tie with Bear Bryant for most by a head coach in the AP poll era. If he wins 7 championships, does that make him the greatest college football coach of all time?
Absolutely. I don't think he has to win for us to actually say that. Oh. There's a Mount Rushmore of all-time great coaches that are still performing. Look at Geno, UConn women, in the championships that he's won. Obviously, Coach K at Duke. Nick Saban, what he's doing at Alabama. The Patriots with Bill Belichick. Like, this is becoming something like if the Golden State Warriors can continue to ascend, like, this is what sports is all about. You literally have the great team, the great iconic coach for each opponent to now have that measuring stick. And we'll see if Clemson has what it takes to upend Alabama.
Jalen, I have Alabama easily winning this game by over 10 points. How do you think it'll play out?
I want to see Clemson win because of everything we just discussed. But if I was a betting man, got to go with Alabama.
I agree. Now, very quickly, Jalen Rose, there is an update on the ongoing drama in Pittsburgh. The latest is the Steelers are likely to deal Antonio Brown by March when the new league season begins, and there are reports that Ben Roethlisberger is thinking about restructuring his contract to sort of aid that and give them a little more flexibility in the offseason. Do you think Antonio Brown ever wears a Steelers uniform again?
I think if it's up to him, he'd be happy that he got moved. I think watching him as a player become an all-pro to now seeing the team not taking care of Le'Veon Bell and then the season ending the way that it does, I think he would be happy if the Pittsburgh Steelers decided to move him, especially if it's to an offense that's really effective at getting the ball down the field.
Well, everyone enjoy the college football championship tonight at 8 o'clock on ESPN. We'll be back tomorrow to discuss it all.
Thank you.
Cannot wait.
Thank you.